Hello there and welcome. In this video I got you 5 new builds for the reworked Dark Culture, 2 for the Cult of Death and 3 for the Cult of Tyranny. We're gonna be going over their tomes, their vital parts, how they work, and everything you might need to know to get it running. I also put links down in the description box which lead you to the build planner online, so you can just look at the build, how it works. I made society traits for these, but I didn't make body traits yet again, because I feel like these are so vastly different from your playstyle that I didn't bother. But the society traits are sometimes necessary, and all of them are adapted to the playstyle. Now, with that out of the way, let's get started with the number 1, a classic Necromancy Cult of Death build, because I felt like they're just very, very synergistic. Power from Death gives you mortal blessings whenever something dies, friendly or not friendly. It's more HP, it's more critical hit chance, and our goal with this build is very simple. We just do what Necromancers do best. We go classically in our first tome for the Tome of Necromancy. With Skeleton Reanimation, we have plenty of units we can sacrifice and work with, and don't worry about anything. In case you haven't played with them yet, the new reworked Cult of Death has a ability called Death Waltz, which allows your unit to act one more time, then they get doomed and die at the end of the turn, but they get resurgence, so as long as you win, it's not really a loss. It's a very, very wicked spell, and I just say as much as controlling an enemy unit allows you to cast this on them and get rid of a problem. One of the many things you can do. So all in all, we are working here with expendable units that we just can reactivate via Death Waltz. Skeleton Reanimation does that. Necromancers allow us to resurrect even more dudes. And all in all, we got ourselves everything we require to just have a good front line. We also use as a second source of utility, power, and damage the Tome of Cryomancy. Here we gain Frost Arrows and Frost Blades for our entire roster, a real benefit. We also gain White Witches, which excel at crowd control, and we also gain a Ice Coffin spell to freeze enemies. All in all, good things. I want to point out here real quick before we might forget it, that the units are slightly different for the Death and Tyranny builds. On Death, we run Mortalists. These guys are supporters cosplaying as battle mages. Nah, just kidding. Their spell, though, Death Hex, allows you to put a life seed on an enemy and hurt them. When the enemy with the life seed dies, it's a AoE bomb of healing. This is your main source of support. Just put that on an enemy, let them explode, and get the healing. This works well enough so you don't need any extra supporters, especially not in an undead necromancy build where you got plenty of options to sustain yourself. So next up, Tome of Souls. Obviously we want those bone horrors. We can utilize the banshees too if we want to, but honestly the mortalists I personally found to be better. And yeah, the rest of the things here, Soul Binders is also a really nice thing, but we are mostly here for Bone Horrors, Soul Binders, and the occasional Banshee, but the Bone Horrors are the main takeaway here. After that, I went into a quick side stroll into Materium and the Tome of Artificing. There's a little nice caveat. The Mortal Blessings, when something dies, not only give us HP, but also a extra critical hit chance. Combine that with artisan armaments, and you have one hell of a hard-hitting frontline just by doing your thing. The nice part here is that we also gain siege magic, a couple of extra add-ons like artisan fortifications and bolt repeaters, which help us in the battle with cities or the defense of, which is always a nice thing. Just ignore the iron golem. We just really don't need the guy on our build here. We are necromancers after all. So after we went to our quick side stroll for Materium, we go straight ahead to the Great Transformation, obviously. We want Whiteborn. At that point, our units get lifesteal, and that is the point where you really are hard to kill. You have reactivations, you have life blooms, and lots of things that just work well for your sustain. We also gain Bone Dragons and lots of goodies that make it really hard for the enemy to invade our turf. Fetid Legion, with the extra HP on it and the weakening aura, really plays well into our HP stacking scheme. The other one that I went for here was Torment, because Torment is really a nice add-on for any necromancy build, I felt like. Painbringers are obnoxiously hard to kill, and even better when they are undead. Tormenting projectiles is just good for your entire roster, and Torment is one really nice thing that punishes the enemy for their good stuff, and generally, in the late game, this is a very, very powerful little thing. With Painbound, we also have a reward for getting smacked. Don't underestimate how much the positive status effects come into account here. The morale is not really what we are after, being undead and all, but you get the idea. So, all in all, we do this as a layer of fortitude and debuffing the enemy, so we can then go in tier 4 for the usual suspects. Tome of the Reaper for those juicy Reapers and extra death magic support, and if you have it, additionally Tome of the Revenant for a plethora of excellent late game undead units. It really works well, mainly because we now got a really strong support with the Mortalists. I really, really like these guys. And you also have as a late part of the party the Death Stalker, which is a good finisher. So whenever somebody is whittled down by your undead minions, these guys are excellent at taking things down. Keep in mind, they are one of the few units that get stronger and stronger the more stacks of Mortal Blessing are out there. And the Death Guards, well, they also get a very, very strong tanky ability from those Mortal Blessing stacks, so just sacrifice undead units and keep it going. Very excellent build. I really like it. So, number 2 we go for is another Cult of Death build, but here, instead of going for the Necromancy, we are focusing into the animal part of things. Because since we have a nature side bias, that brought me to the idea. And one of the most spammy things in game are animals. Mortal Blessing plus spammy animals is really excellent. Also, if you happen to have vampire spiders, they also go really well into sustaining parts. Now let's move into the necessary moving parts, namely tomes. So, first up, I like to start this build with Zeal. Tome of Zeal is an excellent starter for Dark Culture in general, and it remains like that. We gain a good power-up via Legion of Zeal, a good steroid via Inspiring Chant, and the Zealots are just a good spammable unit. At the end of the day, nothing wrong about that. Fanatical Workforce makes our cities go more productive, and the trio, Zeal, Chant, and Workforce are already enough to recommend this as a starting tome. Since we are playing animals, obviously after that we have to go for the Tome of Beasts. With that, we gain access to the Wild Speaker, which can conjure sacrificeable things. We get to boost up our animals and cavalry, so if you want to pick up a extra cavalry trait on your culture, goes really well into this build. Really, really well. And apart from that, we get some debuffing things. Marcus Prey is excellent, and Animal Kinship. Like I said, it's boosting up the rest of your roster by being in tandem with animals, and that's pretty good. So Wildlife Sanctuary gives us the ability to recruit animal units, and there's a couple of them that really fit well into that. I mentioned spiders also because their higher versions all have, again, a ability to summon units. So all of the Spawn Hatchling. All of the Matriarch units, I wanted to say, but actually not all of them now I look at it more closely. Yeah, the Dread Spider is the one that I was looking at. I think the Vampire Spider also does that. These two are really excellent because they give you yet another unit that triggers your whole Mortal Blessing shtick. It's really excellent. So let's move on over to Tier 2. On that end, I went into Tome of the Beacon as the very first thing. For one, it gives us Mighty Meek. This is the one thing that I'm after. Mighty Meek plus animals is excellent. The power-up is real. But Divine Beacon, Chaplain, both of them are excellent healers. And I mean, I said that Death Cult is already pretty good at sustaining themselves by themselves. but this is even better. This way, you feel really hard to kill. The Blessed Soul is a strong fighter type unit. If you can get it going, I really recommend. And the Divine Beacon, yeah, it's more healing, but not that much of a necessary deal. We also have a pretty strong foot in the door, free city-wise, with the Covenant of Faith, because we can generate mana out of that. This is really cool. So, tier 3 comes, and with that we go all into nature. So cycles for blooming projectiles and the Blades of Decay, which just amps up your damage over time potential massively. Druid of the Cycle is excellent because the whole resurrection thing is so easily available with all the units that we can sacrifice to him, and a lot of extra healing. We are hard to kill, didn't you know already? Tome of Vigor for more animals, more powerful animals now. With empowered beasts, even the small critters become a real force. Totem of the Wild just generates more spammable, sacrificable things. It's excellent. You get, by this point, just a dominance on the battlefield, which is really nice. And with Super Growth, we also are even harder to kill HP-wise. But this one is... yeah, well, it's okay, but we already gained so many HP via Mortal Blessings, it doesn't really fall into account here. You can actually skip that if you wanted to. With Tier 4 incoming, Tome of Prosperity for even more awful, not killableness. Prosperity Dragon for the buffs, Staves of Grace for even more backup. You by now have supporters with the Tome of the Beacon, and Blessed Armor makes your units even harder to kill. It's a pretty straightforward scheme from here on out. The other tier 4, I chose Nature's Wrath. You can go for whatever you want at that point, in all honesty. Here, the build is already very complete-ish. It's just the animal builds, they hit their peak at tier 3 in my opinion. Now, number 3. Let's get into the Tyranny builds, which I personally preferred a little bit. Cult of Death is fun, but I personally love the new Cult of Tyranny's Aura of Tyranny thing. We use here different variations of the scheme. We lower the enemy's status resistance whenever we smack somebody, we have an automatic heal. So these dudes practically come with inbuilt life leech. Status vulnerability is also allowing us to get a lot of new things to hurt the enemy, and let's get going. So, the first thing that I wanted to introduce is a classic tanking and spanking build, which we use to be swarmy, hard to kill, and have fun while doing so. We start out this variant again with the Tome of Zeal. I already mentioned it, and in this end it works practically even as well as with the other part. Let's look quickly before we head into the tomes onto the differences between the Tyrant and the Death Cult. Here we changed the Mortalists for Warlocks. You already know these guys, they're the same as they were before, there's nothing new with these. But we get here the Tyrant Guards, which are also the spear units you knew. You really would not be seeing too many new things here. The new part here, though, is that they get a interesting new immobilization thing. I didn't know about that in the first place, but I like that because it makes them really hard to run away from. And the Tyrant Knight is the Dark Knight as we knew him, with a new feat. Despotic Vitality allows us to leech life or heal up for every enemy around us, and Trample allows us to get into the center of attention, which means these guys are now the exact definition of a shock unit. They're in the middle of the fray, full HP, you either focus them or you don't and let them do their thing. But do you really want that? Pretty excellent, and we can utilize these things with the given tools all quite well. We combo the Tome of Zeal in this regard now with the Tome of Alchemy, as soon as I have realized that it's with Materium and not with Nature. I don't know why, I think it's always there. So, Tome of Alchemy. We picked this up to spread statuses on the enemy. You know, afflicting miasma is excellent. We took zeal to condemn the enemy. We can now apply all manner of different status effects, mostly bleeding and poison by default with the given units. You can amp that up to your own liking. It also gives you a nice edge in terms of knowledge generation. I really like that. And also status control. Mysterious Tonic and Anti-Magic Tincture are really powerful to keep the bad statuses away from your troops. It's pretty nice because we like to control statuses. That's pretty cool. So, Tier 2, Tome of the Beacon. I chose this here again to go mostly for Mighty Meek and have a foundation for the tanking's sake. Chat lanes, Mighty Meek, it's just a very... your low tier units are harder to kill, hit hard, and we already went over the tome before. I really like what that does for us. On the other end now, we pick here Tome of the Soul, Tome of the Doom Herald, sorry. Typo here on my script. Doom Herald, to shave down the enemy's morale, because we are already hard to kill, we are already pretty much in their faces. No reason not to drain their capability to hurt us, increase our own damage profile with cruel weaponry and joy siphoners by increasing our own crit rate and increasing the damage when their morale hits rock bottom, and yet another gain for technology and mana. And Corrupt Souls are really powerful units. Really, I love them. Some of the best things that I knew. So, we go in the next phase for Tome of Torment, mostly for Painbound, so our units get benefits from being hit. And I really like Tormenting Projectiles to make the enemy pay for what they do to us, and the Painbringers also really fit nicely into, because they are hard to kill, they are applying torment like bosses, and yeah, that's just a very good fit into everything we do so far, and even more mana and knowledge gain via the Basilica of Lamentation. It's pretty good, it's really going places here. You have a good science output with that build. And as the last one, Tome of Prophecies. This we use to get Precognition. We get critical hit for our ranged units. Precognition allows you to evade an incoming attack, so we are even harder to kill at that point. And yeah, the combination of getting critical hit for our own units and being harder to kill with Precognition and getting a tier 4 late game support, that's pretty good for a tanky build in all respectable regards. Prosperity to top our defensive qualities off, and Supremacy as the last thing to power up our battle magic. Really fun thing on Supreme Magic. Exemplars for even better frontliners. And yeah, the rest is pretty straightforward. This build is very hard to kill and really just amps up the longer it goes. So let's move on over to number 4, the crowd control domination scheme for the Tyrannies. You know, if we lower the enemy's resistance against statuses, we can try to stun and dominate the hell out of them. And this is the whole idea of this build. We are starting our trip here yet again with Zeal, because it's just a good package for damage, and I like the Condemnation for the Tyranny dudes. The application of Condemnation is lowering their status resistance even further, and this way you have access to manipulate higher tier units super early. This is really what it's all about. Also the damage, obviously. The other part, Cryomancy. Here we don't need to argue much about that either. We want to slow and freeze the enemy, and this is where we get access to that. Also, we get a nice knowledge building province. I like that. Tier 2. We go now for the real interesting parts, at least in my opinion. Tome of Inquisition gives you Lightbringers. Lightbringers allow you to dominate enemy units. Since we lower the enemy's resistances massively, we have access to just recruit ourselves whatever we find tasty on the enemy side. This is alone a really, really powerful thing. The Inquisitors are excellent tier 3 skirmishers. If you haven't played with them yet, they've been buffed numerous times. They were already pretty okay in their standard iteration. Nowadays, they're awesome. The Tribunal gives you city stability and knowledge. This is insofar interesting because the Dark Culture, the Tyranny, now has an option to burn city stability into gold, so here we have another nice little synergy. So, on that end, after we went into Inquisition, we go again into Doom Herald, because Tyranny and Doom Herald just go so well together, you know? If we make the enemy vulnerable, we might as well lower their morale at the same time. I just like to do that, and the Corrupt Souls are just so nice units. Although, I gotta say, we have pretty good frontliners on ourselves, but these guys are hard to kill, can nuke, and are available for mana. I really, you know, you might have noticed by now how much I liked it. Tome of Torment comes next. We already went over it. Here, we go more for the capabilities of debuffing the enemies. This is what we're mostly after, and less for the tanky aspects. But at the end of the day, our spears and our souls all benefit. Our spear troopers benefit from Painbound, and yeah, that's pretty nifty. But mostly tormenting projectiles, agonize, and the Painbringer are what we're after here. After that, subjugation, because if we benefit from all these things, we might as well get ourselves a nice intimidating aura, the Subjugator, to go for even more attacks on the enemy morale, and once they flee, we can even keep them. This, I think, might be an exchangeable part of the build, but I really liked it. And as the topping pieces of the build, Supremacy, yet again for the same reasons as we had it before, it just gives you such nice late game units. And as the last part, Tome of Calamity, to give us more nasty ways to hurt the enemy. Accursed projectiles and accursed armors are alone worth picking it up, and the Calamity Dragon and the building Accursed Shrine gives you such strong units, not to mention the spells. I still find that Calamity and Prosperity are among the most bonkers tomes out there. So, the last variant, another Tyranny one, and here I went for the idea of utilizing damage over time, because that's also a status, and it's hard to ignite high tier units, but not for these guys. So, here the idea is pretty simple. We start on the tier 1 side of things with Pyromancy. I think you could start this one also with Cryomancy, but I did this so often in the previous parts, I wanted to go for fire. Fury Arrows, Searing Blades go a long way for our build due to obvious reasons. The Pyromancer is a more nuke-based variant. We don't need that so badly, but keep in mind the Flame Strike of theirs inflicts burning on an AoE rate, and our Warlocks are not so good at spreading so much pain over a large party of enemies. But yeah, ignore the Magma Spirits, in my opinion, we don't need those, we are already very powerful on that end ourselves. Searing Blades, Fury Arrows, and the direct Ignite and Immolate damage are all we need. On the next step, we pick up the Tome of Roots. Here, we pick this for Poison Arrows and Blight Blades. We are, at this point, really obnoxiously hard-hitting already and inflicting fire and poison at the same time. We also gain Entwined Thralls and Mind Prison, which means we have a lot of capabilities to just hinder the enemy in their way, which I really love to go for. It's a nice, and I even call it old school combo. Pyro and Roots just goes damn well together. Enough said. So, next up on the list, Tome of Glades. We want some serious rangers or archers, since we have so many good arrow enchantments already. The Glade Runner comes to serve. With Aspect of the Root, our spears can cosplay as death spears, and Entwined Protectors are our shield units to get ourselves a massive front line, so we can watch our enemies die slowly. After we picked that one up, I went for Mayhem. Mayhem is a fun thing, mostly we pick it for Misfortune. Inside Revolution is also pretty nice. Because we can spam infestations with that, but don't go too crazy for that. Misfortune, Revolution, and maybe the Curse of Misfortune or the Gremlin, and you have pretty much the most juicy bits of this tome for this specific build. Tome of Cycles is the first tier 3, and it's pretty obvious. We go for Blooming Projectiles, so we get that Life Seed, and Blades of Decay inflict all that decay that we need. More damage over time, more sustain, more everything we need to just keep ourselves alive. And the next part of the equation here would be Tome of the Pandemonium, because if we inflict so many negative statuses, Vessels of Chaos is just a power card. We inflict more damage with that than before. With Havoc Magic, we make sure that even new things pop up on the list that didn't pop up before, and with the Chaos Eater, we have a melee battle mage that can just inflict a lot of damage out of all the statuses around themselves. It's a really, really wicked and super powerful combo, and I can say the Dark Culture never felt stronger than before. It's really nice. With tier 4, we pick up again Calamity, because why not also some Ghostfire? Because, you know, it might be replacing our Burning, but the enemy can't counter it anymore that easily, and we also inflict frost damage. Accursed Armors and the rest I've been going over again already. As the last part of the list, I went for Paradise, but I want to give honorable mention at this point to returning to the humble tome of Alchemy, because you have a lot of different things you can do with that. Come on. Here. I always keep looking for that one. I don't know why. Because the miasma at this point is one hell of a deal, because we are very, very rainbowy with that build, and you can inflict a ton of different statuses. But Paradise obviously just makes you tanky as hell, and that is what we're after. Nothing more to be mentioned here. I think it's just I wasn't too happy with the decision, but I didn't find anything better. Maybe you do. Anyways, so that's been 5 of the builds that I enjoyed for the new reworked Dark. Don't want to say that I'm done here. There's still some Eldritch that I need to do, and I don't know, many other ideas, but these were the 5 ones that struck my mind at first. Feel free to chime in and let me know what you had on your mind. Feel free to leave a like, leave a subscribe, consider donating via Ko-fi, YouTube channel memberships, or any other given means. Many thanks to watching these videos, supporting the channel. I really appreciate all you guys do, and see you all on the next one.